Hey BookTube, it's Jackie. How's it going? If you are new to me and it's the first time you're seeing my face, hello, what's up? My name's Jackie. I sit on my floor and I talk about books. So I hope that's why you're here, because that's what's going to be happening. If you're not new to me, thank you for always tuning in and the continued support. I really do appreciate it. So today for you, I have my weekly wrap up. This is for week 35 and all my reading shenanigans in between. This week does include August 28th through September 2nd. So if you'd like to know what I was doing, what I was reading, and what I was dealing with between those days, grab yourself a drink, have yourself a seat. Let's get talking some books. Okay, so in this week, I completed a book, I DNF'd a book, and I decided to put one book on the back burner to pick up again later. So not a very exciting week for reading, but a lot of stuff happened in this week. So it's all stuff that I want to talk about. I do want to talk about this book that I did complete, along with the fact that I don't DNF books very often. Actually, this is the second book I've DNF'd all year. And then something that happens with every reader, sometimes you pick up a book and you're just not feeling it, so you kind of put it on the back burner. I don't consider that a DNF because I do plan on picking this book back up. So it's just one of those experiences that I want to talk to you guys about a reader, because it's not something I've ever talked about on my channel, but I know everybody deals with it. So I thought you might want to know kind of what goes into it with me and kind of what happens with it if you care. If you don't, that's okay. We're gonna go through the book that I read, and then I'm gonna talk about my DNF process, and then I'm gonna be talking about the back burner process. So I will timestamp those in the down box below. So if you wanna skip to something, or you just want to know when you can cut it, there you go. So let's dive right in. So the book that I did complete was Pursuit by Andrea Johnston, and I gave this thing 3 stars. This is a standalone that I read for the ABCs of Love read along that I do with Jen over at the Book Refuge, and we already had our live show on the books for August, and I will put it in the card up here in the corner, and I will link the live show in the down box below, so you guys can go check it out, where we both go into in depth and discuss both books that we read for this month. But the triggers for this book were stalking, and we also have a police officer. So there was some fun stuff in this one, a little bit heavy hitting trigger, but definitely some still fun stuff. So we start off with Sophia. Sophia is a college student and pretty much has her whole life ahead of her. She's a great girl, pretty, has friends, is excited about life. You know, she just, the world is her fucking oyster, and she's ready to take part of it. And we are encountering her towards the end of her senior year. But at the end of her senior year, she receives some mysterious flowers and starts getting some really creepy, weird text messages from unknown number. And for the beginning, she kind of just overlooks it, just like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But they start becoming more and more frequent and more escalating in process, which finally results, her friend finally convinces her to go to the campus security. And she learns that campus security, although they speak a lot and they do a lot of good, they can't do anything for stalking, because stalking is one of those crimes that you almost need actual, something to physically happen to you, not just theoretical, somebody sending you random text messages and things of that nature. So she learns kind of the real world aspect of stalking in this, and it starts to really change her mental state. She starts to freak out. She has panic attacks. She doesn't want to be left alone. She doesn't get left alone very often. And towards the end of the year, an incident happens where we think we're going to finally meet her stalker, but it doesn't happen. Instead, she wakes up in a hospital bed, where we actually encounter 2 police officers that become crucial members of her case later on. Then we have a nice, big, huge fucking time jump, and her stalker has come back and is escalated. She's out of college. She's on her own, living with her roommate, and escalation has come forward. The police officer, the Detective Randall, that we met during the incident in college, convinces her to leave town and go to this area called Starlight Ridge, which is pretty much nowhere on the map. They have no digital presence whatsoever, and this is how this man is actually stalking her. It's through technology, through webcams, through her cell phone, all digitized. So they think putting her kind of off the grid will help. And that's where our story really kicks off. Now, what worked in this book? The suspense element of this book is on point. This thing was good. I really enjoyed this for the suspense of this story. I was in it to win it on that one. I really had a good time with it. I had no idea who it was. Did not see that one fucking coming. If you watch our live discussion, Jen asks me who I think it is, and I give reasons of why. And I was shocked because I did not see that. I did not see that twist. I did not see how that connected up. But once I found out who it was, I was like, oh my freaking God. I even called Jen. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Shut the fuck up. No, this was not, no. Oh, it was good. I will give this book, the suspense was really good, which is one reason why it got 3 stars for me. Because as a suspense novel, it was well done. I had a good time with it. Now, I have never been stalked. As far as I know, I've never been stalked. And, but I feel like the way the stalking component was introduced and the way it was handled over the time frame, I felt that it was pretty authentic for some stalking stories that I have, actual stalking stories that I've experienced or I've seen documentaries on. I thought it was very well done. Very, very well done. Maybe not the same kind of like procedural things, but I am not in law enforcement, so I don't actually know the procedure for stalking and how they would go about doing it. I don't know if they would actually move them to an unknown location or anything like that. I thought that was actually kind of weird, to believe it or not. I was thought when I read that, I was like, oh, so you're gonna send her where she literally knows nobody. How is mentally, like, is that good? Is that a healthy thing? But it worked for the story. Now, when we get to Starlight Ridge is when we get to really start this romance kind of kicking off, and we get to really get to know our hero a little bit more. And I really enjoyed how their relationship developed. They didn't start off immediately as like, you know, Insta. It wasn't like love at first sight. There was like a true friendship bonding between them. And I really enjoyed the friendship aspect of them. I thought it was actually stronger than their romantic relationship. I see where the romance kind of bleeds into it, but definitely the emphasis of the friendship and the trust built between them, really enjoyed that aspect. I really, really did. Once I started going back and writing my notes, I was just like, you know, the romance wasn't very strong, but the friendship between them definitely was. And I appreciated that. I appreciate a romance that's built off of friendship, for sure. Now, what didn't work for this book, the romance was really, really slow. It was overshadowed by the suspense element of the story. It was very, very, very much overshadowed. The fact that we didn't meet our hero, or at least we didn't know he was the hero until at about 55% of the book. We meet him at 30%. Okay, we get introduced to him. We finally get his first POV, and then we know because he's got the POV, but we don't actually see any connection point really until about 50% of the book. They only have one other time on page together, and it is very split, and you have no idea that he's even the person that was in that scenario either until you finally get a name. So that was kind of awkward for me because I'm reading this book. I'm like, we haven't met the hero yet. What's going on? Is this going to be a single POV? Oh God, this is annoying. Oh no. And then we get an alternate POV, and then I'm like, wait, I'm at 30% of the book and you're just now giving me this guy, and we are flashed back, which brings me to another thing that didn't work in this. There were so many time jumps. This thing was jumping left and right all over the place. So we start the book off with Sophia. We get up to a specific point. We stop. We meet Gage, our hero, and he has gone back to this point prior to where Sophia was at. And then we're getting up to this point, and now we're meeting them in a Starlight Ridge. But once they get to Starlight Ridge, there is a massive chunk of time, almost a solid year chunk of time that is missed between both people. And we're like, okay, so we're gonna use the flashbacks in between this. And you do, but the flashbacks really aren't giving you any information that much, especially towards him. We didn't get a lot of his backstory. We got the aftermath of his backstory, but not really what happened. We know that he was undercover, but we have one instance of him undercover, and then all of a sudden this carnage and everything. So we're not really privy to a lot of him. And that was really disheartening because he was a good guy. I liked him. I liked him a lot. And I enjoyed, when he was on page, I enjoyed him very, very much. The romance just wasn't strong enough for this. It wasn't. And the steam in this didn't really carry it either. I only gave this thing 1 chili pepper. It's very sweet. It's very, very sweet. But there wasn't enough buildup for that. There wasn't enough buildup to give me any intensity. We had a really great friendship. We had a really great start, but the romance needed to be developed more. So we have this awesome friendship, and then all of a sudden it's now romance. And no, I needed to see the back and forth while they were there. I saw back and forth after the hookup of like, I don't know if I'm really ready for this, with a bunch of epilogues and like 2 months later, 4 months later, 1 week later. And we see some buildup and layering in there, but it didn't really mean anything at that point because I'm like, well, they've already banged, so who fucking cares now? Like, damn, you know? So the romance really lacked in this. So if you're reading this for romance, it's not very strong. If I had to score this just off of romance, it would have only been a 2-star. But the suspense was that good, it bumped it to a 3-star, if that makes any sense. I hope that made sense in my crazy ranking system. Sorry, guys, I hope that worked out. But I did have a good time with this one. And again, we already discussed this one on our live show. So if you want to go hear Becky and Jen's thoughts as well, I will link it. It'll be linked in the down box below, and it was up here in the card earlier. Now, the second book I attempted to read, but I ended up DNFing, was the Other ABCs of Love read-along book, and that was Quintessentially the One by Athea Romig. And because it's DNF'd, it automatically just gets 1 star. Because I did read a portion of it, I 1-starred the portion that I read, okay? This was A Second Chance and Secret Baby. So we have Cadence and Dax, who are friends with benefits, long-standing friends with benefits, through college years, through early adult life, and they gave each other virginity. They were each other's firsts, and it's a really awesome scene in that book. It starts off really strong with that opening scene. After Dax's grandfather, though, passes away, Dax comes back for the funeral, and he finds consolation in Candace's arms. And it's a very sweet night. It's a very sweet moment, but they do exchange words of love and affirmations and affection. Dak asks her to come back with him, and she says, I can't, my dad's sick, all this other stuff. But they do share words of love, but then that's the end. And then we fast forward about 5 years, and Dax has to come back after his grandmother has passed away to deal with the will, as he's the executor. And he has not spoken to Candace at all in this time frame. So this will is not only just dealing with the aftermath of her death, but Dax's grandmother ran a store that Cadence works at called Quintessentially Yours. It's a nice little shop that sells a lot of locally made goods. And Cadence is working there for a long time and built it. She's got a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this place. And it's supposed to go to her, but he is the executor, so he has to see that that happens, and there has to be some kind of monetary exchange. And there's some other stipulations involved in the will to make this happen. He has to, I think, work there for like a day or something or whatnot, and they both have to be present. Because Grandma decided to inadvertently force them back to each other, because when Dax found consolation in Cadence's arms, Cadence, I don't exactly know how you say her name. I think it's Candace. Found consolation in her arms. There was a product made, a little girl named Molly, that Dax has no idea about. And Candace does. So now he not only gets to face Candace, but inadvertently grandmother has set up him to face his daughter that he knows nothing about. And that's kind of where our story sort of kicks off. He's come back home and now has to deal with all of this. What worked? Dax. He's a stand-up dude. Dax is a good guy. Yeah, sure. He said he loved her and didn't really contact her back, but he wanted her. There was many instances up until the point that I read where he made attempts to get her to come with him to leave this town because he wanted more than just this small town, and she chose not to leave. Completely her choice, all right? But he still remained friends with her. They came back, they hooked up. She never had a problem with just being friends with benefits. He's a stand-up fucking dude. he is. He's a decent fucking guy. He's educated, he has money, and he's willing to take care of his child, okay? He's willing to fucking do it. That's what worked. That's all it's worked, was Dax. Up to the point that I read. What didn't work? Secret baby, straight up. Candace, whatever the fuck her name is a bitch. She has a child and doesn't tell him about it. It's not like he was a criminal, a bad guy. He just said, I love you, and never contacted her back. Really? Is it a dick thing to do? Yeah, it's a fucking dick thing to do. Is it a reason to not tell him that you have a fucking child? No. No, it's not. You're a fucking liar, and I have no respect for you. As soon as I found out about the child, I was like, okay, let's see what her reasonings are. Her reasonings are shit. Because he told you he loved you and never contacted you back. That's why you're a bitch. You're a bitch and you're fucking useless. That's not a good enough fucking reason. I lost all respect for her at that point, and I was just immediately, because I listened to this on audiobook, I was like, you can't redeem yourself. If that is really your fucking reason, there's no redemption in this. None. And I was at that point when the live show happened. And I got a little bit further afterwards. And it turns out that her mother has, one point in time, has a conversation with her and says, how would you feel this was you? And she says, like, I understand this, but I'm so worried about not getting this shop. I put so much time and effort in it. Are you fucking serious? You are worried about this fucking store, and you could potentially be scarring your daughter. And that's what you're fucking worried about? Get fucked, lady. You're a cunt. Get fucked. No, I was done. That is when I was done. I was done. At that point, I couldn't. And to make matters all worse, the grandmother knows about the granddaughter, has a relationship with the granddaughter, and never told her grandson. The whole fucking town knows and never told him. So when he comes back, he's treated like a fucking asshole. Everybody's being complete dicks to him, and he has no fucking idea why. He thinks because he's never come back home in the last 6 years. No, it's because this woman has brainwashed this entire town that he's not to know about the child. So whatever fucking lies she told, I even got to the point where what lies she fucking told people, and I'm assuming it had to be a lie because there's stupid people out there. There is, that would believe this shit and pass and actually do this. But everybody in the town go along with it. Becky made a really good point that there's not a single person in this town that didn't want to get back at her that would have leaked it. No, really? No. This whole town has her back. So what fucking lie did she spew? No, I was done. There was no redeeming this. There was none. There was nothing this author could have written that would have justified this woman not telling this man about the child. If he had been a criminal, if he had been a rapist, if he had been a pedophile, if he would have been an abuser, I maybe could have seen it. Actually, I probably would have seen it. But what character, Dax, you gave me a stand-up, decent human being who does love you. He loves you. He might not just be in love with you, but he did love you. Get fucked. No. And then you have the audacity to tell your mom that you're worried about getting a fucking store when she's trying to point out that how would you feel if this happened to you? You are hurting your daughter. You could possibly be scarring your daughter for life. And all you worry about is a fucking store. You're a dick. Get fucked. Get fucked. I'm done. And I DNF the book. Now, I did get some carnal scenes in that. I mean, we open up with a sex scene. I will give this book that it was I like the authenticity of the first time experience in this. We do have an oral scene where she stops him and she's like, I've never done this before. And he enjoys the noises that she makes and the fact that she's nervous. I definitely enjoy that because I remember the first time that happened to me, I said the same fucking thing. I'm like, I don't know what are you doing? I don't know. And it was a moment that I could relate to. I could 100% relate to that moment. And I understood. I like awkward first times, because first times aren't always perfect. So I do enjoy the fact that the author gave me an awkward first time, gave me the internal monologue of Dax hopings, like, I wish I was better at this. I don't know if I'm doing this right, but she's making the right noises. She doesn't know how to really respond to it. She's like, I don't know. I'm not in control of my body for the first time. I enjoyed that. Granted, sex in the hayloft, well, that's gonna get kind of itchy and might hurt a little bit. But hey, you know, people have done it in worse scenarios, so that was fine. But I enjoy the authenticity of that. So I will give the spice rating. I gave this 2 chili peppers for the amount of sex that I got, up to the point that I got. And I was about 45% of the way through. But I DNF'd it because of the heroine. There was no redeeming. There was no redemption in her. Nope. I don't know how an author was going to redeem that. Those were the reasons you gave me. No, I don't care. I don't care. Your heroine sucks. She sucks because she's a horrible human being. That's cruel and unusual punishment. Absolutely. So it was not fair. So that was a DNF for me. That's my second DNF of the year, guys. Second DNF. Now for the book that I'm putting on the back burner, I started Shen Liu's The 3-Body Problem. This was my Red Witch and Bitchin' book club of the month for August, and I feel like I'm going to really like this book. I was in it when I was reading it, but I only got to about 58 pages, and I found myself not lack of anything of the writing, anything of the story. I just felt like it wasn't the right time for me to read this book. And I've said this before on my channel, that sometimes you receive books at the right time and sometimes you receive them at the wrong times. Sometimes you just do. And I feel like this is not the right time for me for this book. This is sci-fi, and this is a genre that I do not read a lot. But when I do read it, I have to be in the mood to read it because it is not something I normally want to pick up. Not because I don't enjoy it, not because I don't understand it. It's just because it's not something that calls to me all the time. But when it does, I like to have stuff on my shelf that really interests me. And this does interest me. The storyline does interest me. The fact that aliens might be coming involved does interest me. The fact that it's a Chinese translation interests me. Another thing, though, with it being a Chinese translation, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't translate very well. So not really being in the mood to read it, plus having that layer, I felt like if I forced myself to read it, and usually I would do that because it was a book club book, but literally everybody in my book club didn't finish it because we were all kind of feeling the same way. For different reasons, what was going on in our lives or just for whatever, but we're all kind of like, we're just not feeling it right now, depending on whatever circumstance we're going on. I don't want to possibly ruin the experience of this book because I feel like I could have a really good time with this book. So I'm putting it on the back burner. And this is something that readers do all the time. I know a lot of readers that will pick up a book, read a first chapter and like, yeah, it's not really for me right now. Decent, but not really for me right now. And they put it down. I don't consider those DNFs. DNFs to me is did not finish. That's what it stands for. But to me, DNF implies that I'm not going to ever pick up this book again. I don't want to pick up this book again. I do not want to finish this book. The want of finishing this book does not exist within my person. That is what a DNF means to me. So when I DNF a book, I don't ever pick it up again. I get rid of it. I don't touch it. I don't think about it. I only talk about it if I'm asked about it. Or like I'm doing like a wrap up or something like that. But a book that I put just back on the shelf, it intrigued me enough. I just know that I'm not in the right headspace or the right mindset or the right time in my life to read that book. And because of this practice that I've gotten into, I have saved myself from reading books that I have a feeling I will love. I'm just not in the right mindset. It's also a reason why I haven't finished books. Les Miserables is one of, I've done this to Les Mis probably 3 times. I know I'm going to love Les Mis. I know I'm going to. Because I love the musical. I know I'm going to. I already know the story. I love the story. But sitting down and reading, I've got to be in that space. And I've never been in the right space. And when I am in that space, I choose to pick something else up, or I just can't commit to that big of a chunky of a book, or I just go watch the movie or go see the musical again. And I get my fix that way. So this is kind of a risky practice when it comes to completing your TBR. I'm fully aware of that. And it is a practice that I don't like to utilize a lot because it can become so easy to be like, I'm not really feeling it right now. I'm gonna put it down later. But I've technically already started it. And I have this gnawing feeling because once I start a book, it does sit with me. And now when I walk by my shelf that have my sci-fi books, I will remember that I have started this book. And when I see it, it will glare at me and judge me for my lack of finishing. And so I have that feeling. That feeling will now become attached to books that I do this to. Which kind of sucks because then when I do pick up the book, it could sour. I could feel like I'm forced to read it, and I don't want to feel like I'm forced. That was the whole reason why I put the book down in the first place. But to avoid that feeling is why I kind of trudge my way through. But when it's a genre that I don't read that often, I just can't do anything about it. I can't. And there's too much other stuff that I want to read. I have way too many goals that I just can't force myself to read a book. And also, there's a lot of physics in this book, and I'm just not in a physicsy mood. I don't feel like trying to figure that shit out, to be perfectly honest. So it's going to go on the back burner. I don't know if you're going to see it again this year. I don't know when you're going to see it again, but I do hope you will see it again. I hope I'll still be doing BookTube when I go to pick it up again, and I can reference this and be like, see, I did it, guys. I read it. Yay. So, yeah. But that's just an experience that I go through when I backburn books, and that's what I call it, backburning books. So if you ever have done this, or how you feel about it, let me know. I would love to have a discussion about that because I think it's something unique in reading, and it's different for everybody. Some people feel nothing about it. They're like, started. I didn't really care for it, wasn't feeling it, but I like this author, so I'm gonna give it another shot later on when I feel like it. Versus people like me who is like, it's kind of annoying. I do it more often than I DNF books, but I still don't do it very often. And I don't often DNF books. So you got to see kind of two sides of my not finishing things coin today. Good times. But that's what I got for you guys this week. I hope you enjoyed this and you learned a little bit more about me. And I will see you guys all soon with another video.